Hey everybody, I'm Steve Moore.
And I'm Mark Castleman.
We know the pain and heartbreak of porn and sex addiction.
And we know the triumph of breaking completely free.
Every day, we help our clients find hope and healing.
Join us in the fight to take back your life, your marriage, and be stronger than ever.
This is the PBSC Squared podcast. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the PBSC podcast. Steve and Mark here coming at you with episode 265, if you can believe that. We are just moving along. And it's 2025 when we're recording this. I don't know where the beginning of the year is going. It's
265 in 2025.
That's right. That's going to be a song. Somebody, or a band name. Somebody make that into a band name and let us know. Awesome. Nobody will even know what you're referencing, right? Who would ever guess that you're referencing a pornography addiction podcast? It'd be perfect.
Right.
Well, episode 265, guys. Here's the title. I'll just read the title, and then we're going to jump right in because this is a really good submission. As a porn sex addict or sex addict does, quote, I want to get clean for her, unquote, or, quote, be worthy for her, unquote, work as a motive for recovery. And this is great. We're mixing it up this week because this is a question that comes in from an addict.
It does.
And this is what he says. Hello. Very grateful for this podcast. It has gotten me into journaling and wanting to do better in general. However, I have a question that I think you all might be able to answer. I have been addicted to porn for about 8 to 9 years. Originally exposed at age 10, but didn't start to explore it until about 12 or 13, which is right in line with Steve's age, almost 2.
And mine, yep.
And Mark as well. I have in the past made attempts at breaking from porn and sex addiction. I have been doing very well this past fall, 40 days clean and looking good. Then family drama occurred that shattered that and caused me to go worse than I had before. So he escalated. Worse than I had before to try and self-soothe. At that time, I gave up and just wanted to be left alone and self-destruct, if you will. And then at the beginning of this year, a person entered my life that caused me to want to turn around very hard and start working on recovery again. At this point, I'm 19 days clean. He said, and then in parentheses it says, of course, days don't matter, but just for information's sake. Here's my question. In y'all's experience, does having a motivation like, quote, I want to be worthy of them, unquote, or, quote, get clean because of them, work? Sorry for the paragraph, but wanted to give some background. May y'all have a blessed day. This person is definitely from the South and the Southern states here in the United States, which I lived there for a few years. Love that. And I'll be praying that this podcast continues to grow and be successful. We really appreciate the kind words. First of all, thank you very much. It's a good subject. It's one that this is one of those subjects, I think, Mark, that on the podcast, I'm curious for your thoughts. It seems like we talk about this frequently, but it's usually like we kind of mention it as a one-liner in tandem with other subjects.
Yeah, we've had podcasts on what does real recovery look like? How do you get, lasting recovery? But I really like this submission about motivation.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a very misunderstood topic. Now, Steve and I, we come from a kind of a unique background with this. Both of us have been at this close to 20 years apiece. Mm-hmm. We have both spent extensive time in the drug and alcohol rehab arena. So we know what that's like. We both are addicts in long-term recovery ourselves. We both were partners in an intensive outpatient facility for porn and sex addicts. I mean, we've run the gamut with whatever you can want to talk about with regard to stone cold addicts, ourselves included, that come through the door for being suddenly in recovery for all kinds of reasons imaginable. We've kind of seen the gamut.
I'd say that's, I would completely agree with
right?
that.
What gets you in the door? Why are you here? Do you stay or not stay? Do you get into eventually real and lasting recovery that becomes a lifestyle for you? What does all that look like? And it is all over the place. So I really liked that this guy submitted that so that we could talk about motivation, what lasts and what doesn't. Is it all internal? Is it all external? Is it a balance of the two? So this is a good one. This is a good topic.
A great topic. Well, and and the answer to that, I think, is nuanced, right? As with many things in recovery. Um, I mean, just as a quick kind of, I guess you could say, recitation of our stories, right? Many of you have heard this before, but we know we have ever-growing new listeners. Uh, I started recovery very much externally motivated. Um, and I found that to be the case for the vast majority of my clients. And what we mean when we say externally motivated versus internally is external are very much reasons like what this gentleman is describing, right? I'm doing recovery for a relationship, or I'm doing it to save my job, or I'm doing it to recover my church membership, or to, right,
Mhm.
these reasons that are outside of the internal that say this needs to make a change or I'm going to lose even more than I've already lost. Um, and that's very much where I was at. And it does bring up an interesting catch 22 that many addicts struggle with because and it really this is the dilemma that so many guys find themselves in. By the time they get to a point where they are needing to be serious about recovery and where they recognize that, right? They've broken through enough of the denial or the minimizing or the shame or whatever it is to be able to really want to try. Oftentimes the emotional damage of addiction, specifically around lack of self-worth, lack of identity, uh, willingness and motivation, a true sense of hopelessness has settled in, right? By the time they get to that point where they've really kind of said, that's it, I give up in all the right ways, like we talk about in 12 step, and say, I'm ready for a change, the other part of their brain says, I don't deserve it, or
Yes.
it's not possible for me now. It's too late. Right. And so they're kind of facing this dilemma because that very thing that would have motivated them before was it's one of the side consequences of being in long-term addiction. Right.
Yep.
Many of us, for example, we get into this whole thing to try to soothe those things away. But in the long term, even though it does artificially, for example, build up my feeling desired in that fantasy world, in the long term, how do I feel? Way less desirable,
Yeah. Way less
way less
desire.
deserving of
Yep.
connection, way out more out of touch. Right. So
Hmm.
and so, yeah, that's where it began for me. And Mark, what do you have to add?
Yeah. There's, and we're going to talk about this from the side of a betrayed partner as well.
Yeah.
There's this, and I don't hear it talked about often enough. It seems like in addiction recovery, people want to go to extreme sides of this motivation equation. It's either, all external or all internal. Either has to come completely from inside me, or I need to placate everybody around me is the reason I do it. Um, we often hear this. We'll talk in a few minutes about this thing called, you have to hit rock bottom, and how that often doesn't serve us well in recovery. The thing about recovery is, and Steve, I know you've seen this over the last 20 years now in all these different settings we've been involved with. This is not, when you get into the in the trenches, real life, like where this actually really happens, this is almost never a smooth, nice, easily traceable and trackable process.
No, it's not.
It just, there are realities of in the trenches, real life recovery. And I love what you just said, that really do bring addicts to the place where they either become one of two things: hopeless or complacent, or often both. Right?
Yeah.
By the time I figure this out, by the time I start to really get motivated from good, solid, lasting places, I have expended so much energy and so much clenching your fists and gritting your teeth and using sheer willpower. I mean, I did that for decades to try to get to recovery. And by the time I actually figured out, with the help of a lot of people, what real recovery actually is, I was almost entirely spent.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like you're in in a prize fight in the ring, and I
Yeah.
just picture myself kind of hitting the ring, with the sort of like from a Rocky movie, and it's like, you're laying there and the sweat's pouring down from you. And you kind of open your eyes to pick yourself up, but then you kind of sit up for a second, then you just lay back down. It's just like, why?
Yeah.
Why am
Why?
I going to get up again? Like,
I think I can see what I need to do against this opponent finally, but I don't think I have enough strength left to do it.
or I don't deserve it.
Or I don't deserve to. Yeah, I don't deserve to.
I'm not worth the effort anymore.
Mhm. Exactly. Yep.
But
I
that very thing, right, is the thing needed for long-term recovery, which is kind of, I think, what brings it full circle back to what we're talking about, right? Because the reality is, and it's unfortunate that it's this case, but it's not inherently bad, is that I think the most addicts start recovery in the externally motivated.
oh
Again,
no,
I
oh
did,
yeah.
Mark did, right?
How many times?
I didn't love myself enough to do it for me. I was
Oh,
past that point. There's no
heck no.
way.
And how many times Steve, you and I ran groups for years and years and years, physical groups. How many times were we standing in the front of the group room, and in comes a guy with his arms folded, a big attitude on his face. He plops down in his chair and sits there with his knees crossed and his arms folded. He's like, okay, impress me. Tell me why I should be here.
Yeah.
And why were many of those guys there? Because their wife or partner or whomever was significant in their life said, this is it. It's over. You either go get help, you either go get into that program, or we're unpacking my bags today.
Yeah.
So we came.
Yep.
I
We have.
remember I would look at that guy and say, hey man, I can tell you don't want to be here.
Mhm.
And I said, you know what? I don't care what got your butt in that chair in this recovery room. I'm just glad you're here.
Yep.
Now let's start from there.
For sure.
Right?
Because you need to have something external to fight for. You really do. I think for many of us, we do. We find ourselves in that point, and so beginning there is absolutely okay. And like Mark said, sometimes that shows up as defiance or obstinance. I mean, I kind of did that, to be honest with you. I mean, I got into recovery. I was so far gone, I didn't even get into it actually get better, uh, even for my wife. I got into it because I figured that this, even though this ship was its destiny was already a foregone conclusion. The USS Mark and Steve was going, or Steve and Brittany was going down no matter what. I figured I could probably keep it afloat for a while longer by going to these
Mm,
groups because now I'm quote unquote working on it. And that will resonate enough with Brittany for her to keep staying for a while. I mean, that's
yeah, yeah.
so sad.
See, and mine was like Eeyore in Winnie the Pooh. Okay, I'm here. I know it's not going to work, but whatever. I'll sit here and see what happens because I'm supposed to.
Mm.
Right? I mean, I had such an attitude that it wasn't impress me. It was, I know you can't help me. I tried to overcome this 1,000 times, and now I'm sitting here in your room, and you're going to do magic? Yeah, right.
Mm.
But I'm supposed to be here, and it's what you do, and it looks good, so I don't have to be a complete loser. All right, I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And again, that we know that sounds just crazy sardonic. I mean, it sounds like something
No.
straight out of like, I don't know, like the poem Never, Nevermore. I can't remember the guy who wrote it, but just so depressing, it just is so sardonic, but it is the reality that many guys face.
It is.
And so and I think I said this word to word one time and word for word one time in a group. Like, thank God for the externals,
For sure. I mean,
you know?
I have a family member who was a stone cold alcoholic for years, and you want to know why he got into recovery? To show everybody that he could do it,
Mm,
but that wasn't the answer to life, like they all said. He stayed stone cold sober for 1 solid year,
mm,
and on day 366, he looked at all of us and said, "You're all full of crap. I'm not happy, peaceful, and fulfilled like you all said I would be, but I wanted to show you I could be sober for a year. And you're all full of crap. I'm going back to the life where I could at least be happy some of the time. See
mm,
ya." And he went back
mhm.
into deep addiction for another 5 years.
Yeah.
But he showed us. I mean, he worked it all the steps, all the therapy, and he was stone cold sober for 12 months. But he did it to show us all.
Mm. I mean, these are hard stories, right?
I
They're kind of
know.
so hard. You got to chuckle because they just, and we're glad we can do that on the back end. But we really appreciate the vulnerability because this is just such a common issue. So the answer to that is it's a necessary catalyst for many of us. Now, we said that the answer to this is nuanced because by the same token, Mark and I would also be the first to tell you. that those externals are usually why a guy gets into this process and really gets serious. But at the same time, they are never, and we would say never in this case, they're never enough to sustain it.
They're
Long-term
not.
recovery.
They're
There's
not.
not.
And Steve, you and I talk all the time. We're going to talk here in a second to betrayed partners because we know what I'm about to say is enormously difficult to hear. For addicts to hear it, but for partners especially, real, lasting, solid, foundational, anchored recovery is a progressive victory.
Mm-hmm.
It is a trajectory. And in some ways, I wish that were not true because I know how hard it is for addicts to be solid for a while and then relapse and fail and get solid and fail and solid and fail. And as hard as it is for addicts, it's crazy hard for a betrayed partner to go through that.
Yeah.
But that's rarely have you and I ever seen a guy who declared himself all in, went sober as soon as he got in recovery and stayed that way forever. You and I know a few people like that over 20 years.
Well, and to be honest with you, even those ones that, because every addiction story is different, right? And that psychology is a little bit unique for everybody. And so you're right, there are those outliers. But I'll be honest, even for those outliers, what I've usually felt about them in the past is a mix of one, jealousy, because it's like, why the hell didn't that happen for me? That would have been great.
Right.
But the other part is a real sense of fear, because we've both been doing this long enough to know that by the time a guy gets to that point, right? The vast majority of the time, Mark and I are not dealing with quote unquote insane individuals. That does happen. And I'm not meaning that facetiously. I mean, I'm talking like really clinically. And we are typically dealing with very sane people. The guys that come into our offices are not what you would picture when you think of porn addict.
Oh, no, that's true.
These are highly productive members of society, well dressed, well kept, oftentimes business owners, very powerful in their community, but are struggling with some very selective issues on a very selective, secretive level. And those guys, and you know, that I think that the unfortunate piece to that is that it really is because of the secretive nature, but kind of tying it in with the rest of that, everything that we're talking about, it really becomes, you know, a question of, if I'm going to be in this for the long term, I have to figure out what was driving this, because sane individuals don't put marriages or family or friends or social circles or standing or whatever. They don't risk those things and those increasingly mounting consequences that we talk about, unless somewhere in the back of that same brain, the brain is registering a massive payoff for that massive risk.
Right.
And we have to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
Otherwise, too often what we're creating, even with because I've seen guys be sober for a year or longer without real recovery, quote unquote. And I always, when those guys don't come back to my office, I wonder, because my experience tells me that too many times that guy is really kind of more of a ticking time bomb of sorts, where there's going to be a breakdown at some point, and either this behavior is going to reassert itself or something worse may even come along.
Well, or he was just really good at sheer willpower, more than a typical human being.
Sure.
Hey, everybody. PBSE podcast hosts Mark and Steve here with a special message about our revolutionary online recovery program for addict spouses and couples called Dare to Connect. Multiple times every week, we get messages from subscribers in the program. They're people just like you. They're trying to heal from the devastation of sex and porn addiction and betrayal trauma. And here's a few of our most recent submissions. Here's one from an addict in recovery. It says, D2C has principles that everyone should utilize regardless of their circumstances. It doesn't matter your coping mechanisms. It matters that you want to work towards genuine connection with your partner.
That's awesome. Another testimony from an addict continues on. My wife is just starting out in training as a licensed therapist. Dare to Connect has been far more useful to her than her degree.
Wow.
The way Mark and Steve apply what they've learned is always so redemptive. D2C has opened doors for my relationship that I thought would be shut forever. Mark and Steve are an incredible resource of information on the subject of sex addiction and betrayal trauma. We could not do this journey without their help.
Here's one from a partner who's been with us for nearly a year. I want you both to know that it is because of you guys and D2C that I'm able to be in the place that I am today. I will always be grateful to you both for your feedback and prompt replies to my questions. I can't even come close to putting it into words how valuable my time spent with y'all this past year has been to my life. Thank you for everything you taught me about betrayal trauma and boundaries and thinking errors and loving myself and making myself a priority and standing up for myself.
Ah, love that. Love that submission. And then as we close out here today, guys, one more account from another addict in recovery. I wish I had a platform like this 14 years ago where I could have learned and done the hard work of recovery before I had done all this damage to myself and to my spouse. And to be candid with all of you, that's exactly why we created Dare to Connect. Mark and I found ourselves in that place. Messages like these and the others like them, they're what Dare to Connect really is all about, guys, and why Mark and I do what we do. Whether you're an addict or a partner of an addict, and no matter where you find yourself in the recovery process, Dare to Connect can take you to the next level. Don't wait another day to catapult your recovery forward. Today is your day for change. Visit us at daretoconnectnow.com to pick up your free 2-week trial of Dare to Connect today.
And I'm just sitting here thinking of the couple of guys, and some of the guys you and I know, we commonly know them from our group programs of the past, who got sober and stayed that way and are still to this day. But there's a couple of things about those guys that everyone listening needs to know.
Yes.
Number one is that, and you probably know a couple I'm thinking of, Steve.
I do.
Their external motivation was intense.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot riding on the line for them to get serious. They didn't come into our office totally internally motivated, ready to do it for all the right reasons. The pressure that was being put up on them was severe.
Well, and can I speak on that? Because I think that there's a two-way street to that, because sometimes that pressure is put on externally, but there is a way for that one to cultivate that internally, right? This mindfulness
Absolutely.
we talk about all the time.
Absolutely.
Frequently, Mark and I, more than once in our clinics still today, when we see clients individually, we will have, I term them called come to Jesus sessions, where it's more or less, look, you need to really see what this is costing you.
Yes.
Because if you're going to be empowered to choose your addiction, at the end of the day, it's not my job to force you into recovery. But I'll be damned if you're going to walk out that door with that minimizing your brain, or that selective naivete or black and white thinking or whatever it is that's convincing you that this is not as bad as it is.
Right.
Because to truly be empowered in choice is to really know what is on the line. And let's make sure we get that clear.
Yeah. And the couple of guys we know that got sober immediately, they knew.
Yes.
And they had succeeded and failed in many times. One of the specific ones we're talking about had severe legal consequences that were.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The handful of their marriages were over. In fact, in a couple of cases, they were already not living in the same home as their partner. But here's the difference. They used that external motivation and pressure. The guys we know, Steve, from day one, they worked their butts off in recovery.
They absolutely did. Absolutely.
It took a lot to get them to where they would work their butts off, but they got to where there was no mistakes about what this was going to take. And they just said, I'm all in. And they showed up every group with a notepad, taking notes. They went home and did everything that we invited them to do. They came back the next week and reported on it. I mean, these guys were all in.
Yeah.
But it was from very strong external motivations that turned into internal motivation.
Yes.
Right.
Well, and they had to stick with the externals, and this is the real. It's hard to even describe, honestly, but there's this gradual shifting from external to internal, and It's not that the external ever truly go away, because I still stay in recovery, partially motivated, to keep my marriage together and connected with my wife and all those things.
Yeah, of course.
But I will honestly tell you, I'm grateful to say it. I don't do recovery anymore for Brittany. I found that it's not worth that as a standalone. It's just not for me, and that may sound horrible. That's probably not the right answer, but it's the honest answer.
No, not me either. But I mean, why? So like you said, part of my reason for why I work on recovery every day and try to live healthy is because I want to stay in my marriage relationship.
Yeah.
But why do I want to stay in that relationship?
It's because we stayed long enough to discover what the benefits of living this lifestyle could be for us.
Exactly. And I want to be in this relationship now.
Yeah.
I'm not in recovery because I'm watching an angry wife's face just waiting for the shoe to drop, and I want to hold the marriage together because of her pressure. I want to hold it together because I love it. I
Yes.
love being in this relationship. It's awesome. And I want to be in it.
When you can hear the shift, and I hope everybody's paying attention to that, the shift, even with the externals, there's a shift that occurs. Because before, what was it? Get my wife off my back.
Yes.
I'm tired of
Yes.
being yelled at. I'm tired of her being
Yes.
sad. I'm tired of being whatever. And now the external motivation is what? I mean, I'm sure underneath there's that. But now what has that been replaced by? I want connection. I'm not
Yes.
running from negative things. I'm running towards
Toward.
positive things.
You've got it exactly right. That's exactly what this is. And it's a trajectory and a progression to get there over time. You just don't give up and you keep going. Now, betrayed partners hearing that progressive, trajectory, gradual, that is the last thing that a betrayed partner wants to hear.
Fair.
How long do I have to put up with this? What are you guys saying? How long is this going to keep going on? How long am I supposed to give him, one more chance? And Steve, you and I will be if those who are in our Dare to Connect program know that we talk about this a lot. We are not here to declare what a betrayed partner should or shouldn't or has to or not have to put up with or tolerate or continue on with. That is up to the sovereign right of every single partner.
Yes.
She gets to decide, right? For how long. She gets to be clear with her firm boundaries around her authentic wants and needs and what his recovery path needs to look like for her to continue to honor those boundaries and for her to continue to stay around.
Yes. And the
My
wise
wife got
answer
to the
from
place where, yeah, my wife got to a place where she declared, I am no longer willing to do it this way.
yeah.
I was half in a recovery, half out. I was sort of became myself, and then I went back to my old self. And she just said, I cannot authentically live on this roller coaster ride anymore. So here's what I now want and need from you. And you get to decide what you're going to do and not going to do. But here's my position.
And it's going to be, and that's the thing is it's going to be different for every
It is.
single partner because, and any, I would argue that any therapist that can give you some sort of objective time frame is probably not approaching it in the healthiest way because every client that walks in Mark's door, my door, anyone's door is, or that comes into our Dare to Connect program, they come in with a whole wide variety of circumstances. How long have they been fighting this battle? How much has the betrayal impacted them? What's their level of willingness in doing their own healing versus not? What are the available resources for them to do that healing versus not? Right? I mean, there's 100 variables
There's a
that
lot.
play a role that can't dictate. Well, it's going to be this in every case. For some partners, it's if you relapse again authentically, I'm out. I can't do it anymore.
Right.
I literally have
Yeah.
nothing left to give, and that's not a power play. That's not an
No.
emotional like reaction off the. It's not like going off the rails, and we're talking them back. That's really authentically like I've put all the remaining eggs here. I can't go through more.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Right.
it's the two realities we talk about coexisting. I love you. And a betrayed partner saying that is absolutely sincere and genuine. I love you. And I don't have one more of your relapses in me.
It's not a question of love. It's a question of compatibility.
Correct.
Right? Those don't always align,
Yeah, they don't always
unfortunately.
align. My wife didn't make her big declaration and line in the sand until after 15 years of marriage, 15 years of nonsense.
For mine, it was what, 7 or 8. But yeah, same
Yeah,
story.
yeah,
She thought that she could ride this through and last through anything with me until the day she realized that she couldn't.
couldn't exactly. Yeah.
So anyway,
Now,
I know we got to wrap this thing up. We're
yeah, and
gonna.
you made some one thing here that I really appreciated in our pre-production notes, Steve. You said, let's be very, very clear. We are not saying that it is a betrayed partner's responsibility to work his recovery
No.
or to continue to threaten him or continue to put pressure on him or to continue to pay attention and be hyper vigilant over everything he's looking at or not looking at, or where's he at or where's he not. That's not a partner's responsibility in any way. His trajectory and this concept of it is a progressive victory over the addiction. That is on him. And she gets to decide what her level of flexibility and capacity is within the relationship.
And what is on her is to use her voice and to make those things known to him, even
Make
though
them
that's
known.
scary to do.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Because that's the real, again, that's what we're talking about here. It's an examination of compatibility. We never own our partner. This came up in Dare to Connect today. We never own our partner's stuff on either side of the street. Partners don't own addicts stuff. Addicts don't own partner stuff. But this is still a marriage, and what we're trying to build here is not two recoveries that somehow successfully occur in a vacuum. What we're trying to do is build collaboration to bring about and to revive and to grow connection. And that means at the end of the day, my recovery, the buck stops with me, period. End of discussion, no holds barred. But that does not mean that my partner, at some point in time, if this is going to be sustainable, not just in terms of recovery for the individual, but for the marriage, at some point, we need to learn how to collaborate and to support. And there's no better opportunity than to do that in this process. When a partner makes those needs known, that should be a mix of here's what I am willing and have a capacity to do, and here are the things that I'm going to need from you. And you get to decide if that's authentic for you,
Right.
right? It's an invitation. It's not a threat. It's not a gun to the head. It's none of those things. Now, God knows addicts always interpret it that way, or too often do, and I did at the time too,
Yeah,
even
of
when it
course
was
it
done
is.
appropriately. But
Yeah.
it's not a threat. It's simply letting you know this is you want me to walk this path with you, and I'm saying I will, but only I can only walk this far. Does that work for you?
Yeah.
And if it does, then I think we can do this. If it doesn't, we may not be able to do it.
I will walk with you, but it can only be a boundaried walk going forward,
Yeah.
not just a haphazard walk.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Here's what the path looks like. And so we take a look, what does it look like for an addict to actually get on the path of real and lasting recovery? There was an old term. This is been used for ever with, especially within drug and alcohol, abuse and recovery. You have to hit rock bottom. And I know that that's been kind of an age old thing that you tell addicts. Well, you'll be in real recovery when you hit rock bottom. The problem with that was that never worked for me. And I saw it not work for a lot of guys because I was what I call a bottom walker. I hit rock bottom lots of times and I would just walk on the bottom. There was a part of me that actually liked wallowing in a terrible, miserable, crazy consequences life because that's what Mark the addict deserved, to be miserable. So I would walk on the bottom of misery. And unfortunately, I drug my partner with me. So hitting rock bottom didn't work for me. I had to decide, who am I? Is this the life I really want? What do I want for me? Is this not working anymore? Did my best thinking land me here? Even my wallowing and being miserable thinking. And it had to come from inside because the dire consequences never lasted for me. They helped, but I would just the effect would wear off, the novelty of the severity would wear off, and I would be right back in my old behaviors.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
there is a place for external, but boy, every addict listening, you need to take it internal as soon as you can.
Well, and that I think right there is the key point, right? We need to be looking at the externals, for lack of a better term, as a life support system with a date on it. This is
Yes,
somebody's lent me an oxygen tank, and I've got to find my own supply of oxygen because this thing has a timestamp on it.
exactly. Yep. This is going to expire and then it won't be enough. It's
Yeah,
never enough.
it's not
We
either for
would,
the addict or for the partner. The partner
no,
will leave out of exhaustion, and the addict will collapse on themselves like a dying star because of perpetual failure. It just won't work.
it doesn't work for either one.
Yep,
Yeah. And, and we know that everyone listening to this podcast, you're all at different places.
totally.
Wherever, so if any guys, any addicts listening, wherever you are on this path, you might not even be sure if you are an addict. You might actually be listening to this because your partner demanded you do, and you think we're both full of crap. you you might
Very much true.
you might see that you're finally getting this little inkling. Maybe the way I've been living my life and self-soothing and medicating and escaping and pleasure seeking, maybe it's not working exactly to get me the life I want. Maybe you're there. maybe you're in full on addiction and you know you are, but you don't know what to do next. Or maybe you're a couple of years sober and you just want to take really developing, living a healthy life and relationships to the next level. Wherever you are, I have here in my notes, get your butt over to D2C. I'm just going to read what I wrote because that's what I would have said to Mark all those years ago. I don't care where you are, get your butt over here to our Dare to Connect program. And we really say that lovingly. It's just such a wonderful place we meet you where you are. I guess that's the best way to say it, Steve, right? And
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, we meet you where you are.
There's a magic that happens in D2C that is just hard to quantify. And we're really uncomfortable, frankly, tooting our own horn. But we set out 3 years ago when we founded the program to try to turn recovery on its head, to try to find, is there a better way to do this than just the old model of just 12-step, just therapy groups, just, individual one-on-one therapy, just couples therapy. And so we set out on a really ambitious venture to create this program. And it is a growing hybrid that continues to change today with new additions all the time. We're launching a forum for new levels of interactivity with members of the groups here in the next little while. Have a D2C Academy with advanced courses in addition to the daily or the weekly sessions. We have 5 Dare to Connect sessions every week without fail, including on holidays, even if in rare instances we'll record a few, but we're like the Postal Service's motto, but we actually follow through, sleet or snow or rain or hail or whatever the crap it is. Like that stuff is always there because we know recovery doesn't happen in a vacuum. It offers support. It offers experience from 2 addicts who get it. It offers understanding. It offers a place to connect with other people who are in the trenches right now in real time. And it allows you to do it anywhere, anytime, electronically, and to do it anonymously.
Yeah.
I don't know anywhere else you can find all of that. We have worked very hard to bring all of that to the forefront of the table. There is nothing else like it. And there's not a better time to try it. Right now, we have one week from today of the recording of this. We recorded this on January 24th. We'll release it on the 25th. January 31st is the end of our once-a-year promotion, the New Year's promotion. We know that that's the time when most people are looking to make changes, and that's why we do it at the beginning of the year. When you go to daretoconnectnow.com, if you're looking to try this, in addition to the usual 2-week free trial, if you put in the code D2C for the holidays, you'll see that at the bottom of your screen. Or if you go to the website, to sign up, you'll see a prompt for it with the code. I won't spell it because it's confusing as hell because I made it dumb. But that's D2C for the holidays, all uppercase. You put that in at checkout. You will also get $150 off, which is over half off of the subscription that covers both you and your partner. You don't need separate ones. It's a combined subscription for both of you. So that's for 2 people.
Yeah, it's for both of you.
And we'd love to have you come join us and see what it's all about. We are growing in leaps and bounds as a result of the promotion, but we know we could have 1 million couples in D2C, and this is really sad, but it would be scratching the surface of how many people could benefit from it. That's a true statement.
It's true.
And so we hope that you'll take the invitation to join us. Anyway, you can join us anytime, but there's never been a better time. And you can find all the info at daretoconnectnow.com about that and what the program entails.
Yeah, love it. Thanks for being here with us. We appreciate and love all of you all over the world. And we will look forward to picking up things on our next PBSC episode. And those of you who decide to come over to D2C, it'll be good to see you there.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.
See ya.
Everything expressed on the PBSC podcast are the opinions of the hosts and the participants and is for informational and educational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered mental health therapy or as a substitute thereof. It is strongly recommended that you seek out the clinical guidance of an individual qualified mental health professional. If you're experiencing thoughts of suicide, self-harm, or a desire to harm others, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.